Greetings. Welcome to a Motley Monday here in the Crone House. I'm working on a few projects here today. I thought you might want to come along for one of them, maybe. I'm not sure. But before we get into the project, which is just a small little project, I want to talk to you a little bit about the topic that I've chosen for today, which is everyday alchemy. Alchemy is a word that we don't hear very often used. It's a pretty old word. I think it's a pretty ancient word. I think for a time in our history, early history, people thought, men thought that it would be possible perhaps to turn, I think lead into gold was the thing. Lead into gold was perhaps what they were trying to do. They thought they could, and it was something that they spent a lot of effort trying to accomplish. A lot of so-called scientists or wizards or whatever they wanted to call themselves. I think we pretty much understand now with our knowledge of chemistry and physics now that we have, that it's really not possible to turn lead into gold. Why you would want to, I'm not exactly sure, but the idea was taking something that was a rock or a common thing and making it into something precious. And somewhere along the line, we decided gold was precious, more precious than other things. Anyway, the term alchemy is not used a lot. We use it somewhat. We hear it from time to time. We hear it sometimes in reference to magical concepts. But what I want to say is, I do my bullet journals every year. And this is the first bullet journal from the year 2020, 2 years ago now, that, every year I take a card for the year. And my card for the year of 2020 was Temperance. And with the card of the year, I was trying to find a word for the year. Choose a word for the year that sort of reflected the card. And I came across the word alchemy. Alchemy. And that was sort of interesting to me. I don't think I had thought of the Temperance card and the idea of alchemy in the same. I didn't think them the same. I did some research. And it says, I think I saw it maybe perhaps in one of the definitions of the explanation of the Temperance card in one of the decks that I was using at the time. But it says there is alchemy within Temperance. It is about blending, mixing, and combining diverse elements in a way that creates something new and even more valuable than its separate parts. Well, I like that, and looking back, I find it kind of interesting that my year 2020 was a Temperance year, because in January of Temperance, of 2020, I was not to know what was going to happen, and just 2 months later, and for many months to follow, the remainder of the year for sure. But I really like the idea of Temperance, and I thought it was about, and to me it was about finding balance, taking all of these different energies around me and finding and maintaining balance, achieving balance. And I think I used the word balance more times in 2020 and in 2021, and I'm using the word in 2022 that I have ever used in my life. This feeling that I'm out of balance and I'm trying to maintain a balance. And yes, in 2020, it was about many of us, this alchemy of sorts that we wanted to practice in 2020, where all of our normal activity, our normal lives, what we knew to be normally true, all at once we were finding that could not be the case. Our lives had to change radically. Our reality had to change radically. Our surroundings changing radically. Trying to take our normal life, our lives, everyday lives, and making something new out of what we could. out of what we had, trying to come up with something new. And this is what I really came to understand temperance and alchemy meaning to me in 2020. I took that away into 2021, and that's what I've been carrying forth, the lesson from that. But I was giving it some more thought. I've been giving it some more thought. And what I came up with was the idea that I'm a lover of science. I do love science. I've studied a lot of science. And I was always very fascinated by science, and I was always very fascinated by the fact, the laws of physics and the laws of scientific knowledge. And I always was very curious why there was such a division in this world that we live in, between people who believe in a god or gods and between people who believe in science. Why those are two different things. Because I was raised in a religious atmosphere, of course, and I've lived in a religious atmosphere, environment, so to speak, ever since. Never without a god or gods, never without the spirit or greater being or creator, never without that. But as more and more as the years went by, and I learned more and more science and more biology and more physics and more and more about this universe and world that we live in, I became more and more religious. It's amazing to think. When you learn some science, you learn a little bit of science, or a little bit of chemistry, a little bit of biology, microbiology particularly, you learn some of these things, and you learn what happens every time you take something into your body, and what happens to that, and how the body processes, and all the miracles that take on. It is such a complicated process. It is so unbelievably complex. It's magical. It's magical. And the more I learned, the more science I learned, the more I learned that it wasn't just 7 days, here, poof, here's the earth, poof, here's a man, poof, here's a woman, poof, here's a broccoli plant. That'd be really nice. Excuse me. But where's the amazement in that? Where's the miracle in that? It just seemed like a magician trick to me. It didn't seem believable. And also I thought it was a little underwhelming. Poof, if you could just go poof and make something, and yes, if we believe in a creator, that he or she could create, poof, create. But when you stop and realize what has gone into creation, the way the evolutionists see it, or the way the scientists see it, it is so amazing, it's not to be believed. It's so amazingly intricate. And a physiology class, I took a physiology class, and oh my goodness, to listen to the professor speak for 2 hours, I was mesmerized. What happens when something enters the body? What happens? How it is processed, where it goes, how the entire body responds. It's amazing. It's the most amazing thing. The more I learned, the more amazed I was. I was giving this some thought, and I was thinking, we know from high school physics that matter can neither be created nor destroyed. And I'm thinking, well, what does that mean? What does that exactly mean? And how does that apply to alchemy? Well, what it actually means, and more importantly, what do we care? Why do we care? Well, I think we care very much as witches. We talk about all the time in our magic how we want to manifest our desires, manifest our wants, what we want, what we need. But what are we talking about manifestation? Are we talking about, poof, I've got a new car. Poof, I have a man who loves me. Poof, I'm in perfect health. Is that what we're talking about? That is not what we're talking about. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. We can't just conjure up out of wherever a car, no more than the earlier people could conjure and could turn lead into gold. That could not have happened. We know the chemical properties are not there. We cannot make something be something completely different. But we can take it into another form. We can take it and combine it with other things to make something completely different. We are breathing oxygen. correct? We're breathing oxygen. We take oxygen out of the air. When oxygen is combined with hydrogen in the right amounts, it becomes water, and we drink it. And it is essential to life. Oxygen we breathe, and oxygen combined with hydrogen that we need to take in. That is chemistry. It's not taking oxygen and turning oxygen into air, oxygen into water, oxygen into a tuna sandwich. That doesn't happen. But oxygen is present in all of those things. That is really what alchemy is about. Okay? And I'll read this again, what I wrote in the beginning of my journal here. It is about blending, mixing, and combining diverse elements in a way that creates something new and even more valuable than the separate parts. We use what is available to us as witches. We use what is available to us as witches to help us achieve what we desire. Okay? We are not after a man, let's say a woman is not after a man, or a man is not after a man, let's say anyone is not after a man who desires to be loved by a man. It's not just creating a man out of thin air. It is about finding a man that we are attracted to, that we want to have feelings for us, and doing what we can do to create the feelings for us within that man, to change the way the man is perhaps seeing us, to change perhaps the way we are important to that man, how valuable we are to that man, making something where maybe he doesn't see us right now, he just sees us as something that is maybe not anything special, to make him see that we are indeed very special, and to make us him fall in love with us, right? That's what it is. It's not making something completely new. It's changing what we have, making it better. How can I make my marriage stronger? That's something that we do spells for. How can I, who am living in poverty, beyond my means, get what I need so that I can survive, so that I can pay my bills, so that I can feed my family, so that I can have some sense of security? How do I do that? We're not asking for money to fall out of the sky, right? We're not putting a rabbit into a magician's hat and waving a wand and tapping 3 times and putting our hand in and pulling out a fistful of gold or coins, right? We're not doing that. We're trying to make the changes happen around us that cause all of a sudden our lives to be more prosperous. That is alchemy. I think that's what I think is alchemy. Okay? Now, this is where I think today's subject is kind of important. Because I'm going to do something in a couple minutes that most of you are going to, before I do it, I'll warn you. Because a lot of you are going to just shut me off and go, I don't want to see that. I'm not interested in what she's doing. Maybe I'm interested in what she's saying, but I'm not interested so much in what she's doing, and that's okay. That's not for everybody. But I want to say something. Because of the things that I am doing, because of the projects that I'm working about today, because of the work that I do in the garden, perhaps the work I do in my kitchen, perhaps because of some of the work I do and some of the things I create, with my fiber and things like that. Because of maybe perhaps I do things like that, it makes me more magical. It makes my life more magical. Because I'm paying attention to what I have, I'm paying attention to the relationship between things, how we put them together, and what happens when they go together. I'm paying attention to the laws of nature. I'm paying attention when I cook, what happens when you put special ingredients together. It is very easy for me to just go to the store and do what I'm going to do today and get what I'm going to get at the store. Okay? Most people do that. But I'm going to get something out of seemingly nothing today. Seemingly nothing. Something that people throw away every day of the week is going to give me something absolutely, in my opinion, amazing. Absolutely something that is a vital part of my kitchen, vital part of my pantry, vital part of my home. Okay? I'm going to see these things because I pay attention to these things. When you are magical, living a truly magical life, you start to look at how things are put together. You start to things like how things relate to see each other. You start to see certain things. You start to feel certain things. How do certain herbs or how do certain flowers or how do certain things like that make you feel if you put them in tea? How do they make you feel if you burn them in an incense? What kind of feelings, what kind of energies are in the air all of a sudden when you smell lavender, when you smell rosemary, when you smell mugwort? That's what makes a witch. That's what makes a witch. If it weren't so, I could use this magic, it's called a magic eraser, a magic eraser. I think it's called. It's worn off. It's very old. I use it all the time. It's just a little rubber eraser that I use. But it says magic on it. Oh my. I could maybe use this and turn this into something. Oh, I'm going to turn this into fill in the blank. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. But I can change things by using certain things that I have around me. I can change some things. There are so many people around that say, why bother? Why bother to grow a garden? Why bother to grow a garden? Why bother? You can buy tomatoes in the grocery store. You know, theoretically, not theoretically, pretty much truthfully, you can get one tomato. You can go to the store and even get one tomato from the store. And you can eat the tomato and you can save the seeds from the tomato. Just spoon the seeds out and save those seeds. And you can plant those seeds. You can plant one seed. And theoretically, you're going to get a tomato plant from that one seed. And how many tomatoes are going to be on that plant? And how many seeds are going to be in each one of those tomatoes? It's almost an infinite amount of tomatoes you can get from that one tomato you get from the store. So theoretically, you really only have to get ever one tomato, and you're going to have tomatoes as long as you need them. Okay? But why bother? People say, why bother when I can go buy the tomato? That's the truth. That's the truth. You can go buy the tomato. You can go buy the tomato sauce. You can go buy the spaghetti sauce or buy the pizza. You can go buy all those things. But there's two different kinds of people in this world. There's the people that say, why bother? Why would you make something when you can buy it? And other people who say, why would you buy it when you can make it? I'm kind of the second person. I'm kind of the second person. Because I can make it better, I can make it cheaper, I can make it easier, I can make exactly what I want, and when I want, when I make it myself. I'm not vulnerable to the whim of anyone else. I'm not making anybody else rich. I am just eating a tomato. Okay. This is a subject that is really kind of very complex. It's not going to be talked about in one day. I'm only bringing it up today because I want you to give it a thought. What kind of person are you going to be? A person who embraces the idea of alchemy in their lives every day, makes their own, grows their own tomato, or makes their own bread, or makes their own soup, okay, is the kind of person that's going to really be ready, better equipped to make their own magic. Why would you bother to use your intention and make a spell? To get somebody to love you. To find somebody to love you. When you can just go on the internet and go on the dating sites or whatever, the matchmaker sites or whatever they are, and find somebody that way. What kind of a person are you? Okay. I'm not going to lecture. It's not my point. It's not my point to lecture. I'm just giving you food for thought. Food for thought. It's food for thought. Just something to think about. Something to think about. I love your responses. I'd love to hear some of your responses. I'll be talking about this a little bit more in the future. I think this is a subject that I'm really interested in. In the meantime, today I have a little bit of Motley Monday going on, and one of my projects today, you could probably see behind me. I have my big it's a oven. It's a roasting oven, a big portable roasting oven. That basically it's meant to, you can cook things in it or use it for buffets. You see them in buffet lines all the time. I basically have it to make stock, and that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to be making some stock. I'm going to be making in my freezer. I have all kinds of things that need coming out of my freezer that I'm going to show you what I have. And the things that I'm going to put in this roasting pan behind me are things that people throw away every day. You throw them away. I'm sure you throw them away every day. I've thrown them away a lot of times in my life. I've thrown them away. I've probably kind of stopped throwing them away, but I'm telling you the kind of things that I have that I'm going to be making my own stock. And then I'm going to be putting the stock in my pantry, canning the stock, putting it in my pantry in a couple of days. And I will also then, I'm also going to show you today a use that I use for it. One thing I do with it all the time. So anyway, just stay tuned. I'm going to get my supplies out and I'm going to show you. The rest of you who don't want to know anything about stock, thanks for watching as far as you did. And come back another day when I'm talking about something you might like a little better than this. Okay, so stay tuned if you choose to. Okay, I have a little pint jar of chicken broth, if I can show you. Here's this chicken made in 21. Just a pint jar. I'm going to show you one of the simplest things I do with this broth. Is I'm just going to make myself a little bit of noodle soup. And I was always a big fan of Lipton soup. So I'm going to just, the dark stuff that you see around the lid there is just bits of particles that were still in the broth. I didn't strain it. I don't strain it clear. Okay, now I don't know how much salt is in this. Usually when I just make chicken stock out of bones, I usually do not salt it at all. But sometimes when I make it out of like a roast chicken or something like that, it already has seasoning in it, so I have to taste it before I can determine if it needs salt. It probably does need some salt, but I don't want to taste it that way. I'm going to heat the broth up a little bit to see if there is enough salt. And I'm just going to do a very simple application of this broth, as simple as I can, like Lipton soup. They had some with chicken and they had some with just chicken broth. This is just the chicken broth. The one thing that they do have is, I can't show you, parsley. I can move this. I have a jar of, here we go, parsley flakes, dried parsley flakes, a little bit of salt, and then I have a little jar of really fine, really short little noodles. I'm not sure what this is called. Okay, I have these little noodles here, a little jar of noodles. These are little shortcut noodles. They're meant entirely for like a dish that's going to be cooked in broth for a while. What happens, you can use any kind of noodle, but what happens when you cook noodles like in soup or something like that is they expand a whole lot. They get really giant, actually. That's why there's no soup in here to begin with. But these are, I think these are semolina. These are semolina noodles. They're very shortcut semolina. I think it's called fideo. Is that what it's called? F-I-D-E-O, fideo. But I have used vermicelli, like a thin spaghetti. I have used even regular spaghetti, just broken up pieces. I've even used like a bigger noodle for this. It's delicious, but you don't want to use too much of it. You have to be careful how much you put in there because it is going to expand. Okay, my soup is now, my broth is hot. It's bubbling. I just want to take a little taste to check for salt to see if how much I need. And yes, it does need salt. So I'm going to give it a nice sprinkling of salt. And just dissolve that and see if it's... I'm going to get my seasoning. I'm going to get good seasoning on this before I put the noodles in. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of parsley. I'm just going to put it in my hand. Like a handful of parsley. That's dried parsley, and I'm not sure how many noodles. I think I'm going to start out with I think I'm going to put like a quarter of a cup something like that. Remember, this is just a pint. I want it to be soup. The last time I made this, I put too many noodles in. We had we had a noodle dish. It was very delicious, but it was very noodly. I can always add a little more. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the lid on this because I don't want it all to evaporate and be gone. And I'm just going to look at that in about 10 minutes, come back in about 10 minutes, and we'll see what we have. Okay, and it took me about a little under 10 minutes, and I have a beautiful, look at this, the beautiful noodles, how they've expanded, and the parsley, and it smells absolutely delicious. And the nice rich broth. How much did that cost me? What was that? That was like practically nothing. I just pulled that out of my pantry. Okay, I'm going to go enjoy my lunch. Here I have my giant roaster oven. It's an 18-quart roaster oven. I've taken everything out of it except for this inner liner, which you have to use. The lid is off, and I'm going to start putting stuff here in my oven to cook. And I want to show you what I have. I've just emptied my freezer. My husband was very excited when I did. I've had this turkey carcass in my freezer since Thanksgiving. My husband was very excited to see it go. Because it takes up a lot of room. As you can see, it still has a lot of, some meat's still on there. That's good, that's important. I have a bag here that is marked chicken thigh bones. My husband buys chicken thighs when they're on sale and debones them himself. And keeps the bones in the freezer for stock. So this is going to go in. I think the hardest part about this whole making this dish is getting things out of the freezer bags. Okay, so that's going to go in. Here's something for stock. This is some more. It could possibly be more thigh bones. It could be. This looks like a carcass from a roast chicken. Okay, that goes in. This says marked for chicken stock, and I can see very clearly this is the back of a roasted chicken that we roasted, probably made for dinner. That's going to go in. Now it looks already like my oven is getting very full. It's not full because these are very hard, and as this cooks, these are going to collapse. But I'm going to kind of fill it up pretty full in the beginning. This is the remains of a rotisserie chicken, which I don't normally buy, but when my daughter and son-in-law were visiting over Christmas, one night we made tacos. My son-in-law made tacos, and he used a rotisserie chicken, which he gets a lot because his wife is a vegan, so she doesn't eat it, so he gets it for himself. I have 3 bags. I always call this garbage because this is what I would normally be throwing away, or I would be putting it in. Most people would throw this away. I would put it into my compost, and a lot of it does go in my compost, but I like to feed my compost and I like to feed my freezer. Both. So, but this is where all the flavor and color is going to come from in my broth. And I have a lot of things in here. I have the clean skins of onions, which would always go in a compost or stone away, and some stems of some probably parsley stems. Here's the stems of some mushrooms. Here's the bottom of celery, which I will also regrow, but I keep some of it for stock. Here's the ends of tomatoes that I've cut off. A lot of onions, some bits of celery. And this is just going to put in here. Sometimes celery that has gone a little too far. I love to put leeks. Sometimes I put leeks in here. Pieces of leeks, the ends of leeks. And I'm going to continue to add to this as it goes down. And I have actually 2 more bags, which they will all go in. But basically I have the same thing. Here's a little bit of zucchini, the ends of zucchini squash, which I will use. I have carrot peels, red onion, pieces of red onion, some parsley that was a little too, it went a little too far. And then I also have, we don't eat a lot of carrots, but my dogs eat a lot of carrots. And sometimes they eat just regular carrots, but also we're always buying these baby carrots for them. It's one of their favorite snacks. And after a while in the refrigerator, they get kind of dry. So I like to add carrot. Carrot gives a lot of flavor, and it gives a lot of color, absolutely color. And then here I put things like, this is celery. I wanted some more celery in here because I didn't have a lot. And I love this, I love the flavor of celery leaves, which I do eat these and we put them in salads and in dishes, but I saved a little bit for this. Now, the only other things that are going to go in here for my seasoning is I put a handful, about a handful of black peppercorns, something like that, in it. And then I also add some bay leaves. And I don't have very many in here. What do I have? This jar I just have like 3. Actually 2.5, so I'm going to put those in, all of those. Okay. The only other thing that I'm going to do with this is I'm going to cover with water. And I use a filtered water, and I'm going to fill this as much as I can possibly get in. I don't want my lid to be in water, but I want it to be as close to it as I can. As close to the top as I can get. I'm going to have to get more water. We have a lot of chlorine and stuff in our city water here, so we use filtered water for everything, and I will get this full. And then I'm going to put the lid on it. I'm going to fill the water clear up to the top here. Here's my lid. So just right below where my lid is. I'm going to cover this and I'm going to put it on, set it for 250 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the same temperature about as a slow cooker. And I'm going to let this cook completely for about 2 days. It's going to go for about 2 days. And I'm going to keep coming back and stirring it and checking it and making sure the water level is up. If I lose a little bit of water, I'll just add a little bit more water, because some of the water will evaporate. But as I said, I'm going to keep adding some more of these vegetables to it. And then we're going to, I'll show you what I'm going to do with it when it's finished. I know most of you probably do not have one of these roaster ovens. It's not necessary. You can do this on the bottom of your stove. You can do it in a pan inside your oven. You can do this in a slow cooker, in like a crock pot. Of course, you can't get as much in it as this, but you could use a couple crock pots. You don't have to use one. It's also possible to use your Instapot. I've seen people use Instapots where they fill their Instapot with chicken or turkey bones or whatever their bones are, and then of course add the same kind of scraps, vegetable scraps as I have, or pieces of onion, pieces of celery, and then fill it with water and then process it for about 2 hours, I guess, to make some stock. That's possible to do, but like I said, this is Alchemy. This is free. These are bones that would normally go in the trash. These are skins that would either go in the compost or they would just go in the trash. Some people would get rid of them completely. This is going to make a beautiful, rich broth, a beautiful, very, very flavorful broth that I can use for anything, that I can freeze or I can can. Okay, so what do I not put in my bags? I wanted to touch on that for a minute. Like I said, I always put onion skins, the ends of onion or root, celery, the bits of celery that you don't want on the bottom or the very ends that you cut off, or leaves that have wilted, celery that has gone a little soft. As long as it's not moldy, it can go in. Squash, like zucchini squash ends are really good. Carrot peels, carrot ends are really wonderful for this. Tomato ends, the part you cut off. Mushroom stems. Things I would not put in it. I would not put peppers, like any hot peppers or bell peppers. That's not so good. Cucumbers, not so good in a stock. But a lot of other things, you know, I don't normally put potatoes, anything like potatoes in it. No potato skins or anything. That would not be good. But a little bit. Garlic, I don't normally put garlic in here. It's hard to control the garlic when it's concentrating so much. I can always add garlic to the dish if I need garlic. I don't salt this. I don't add any more salt to this because some of this chicken and some of this turkey has already been seasoned, and I want to be able to control my salt in my recipe. So I'm going to just leave the salt as is, and when I go to use this broth in the future, I will add salt as needed. Okay, I'm ready to put my lid on. I hope you can see I'm pretty much full to the top. I've had it turned on at 250 degrees just while I was filling it. I had to fill quite a few pitchers of water, get it filtered. But I've got all kinds of goodies. I managed to get almost all of what I showed you as far as the vegetable scraps into my thing. And the water is, here's the water level right there. I don't know if you can see it, but it's just like right below the lid. So I'm going to go ahead and put my lid on the top. And I'm trying to make sure I don't have any scraps caught. And I'm just going to leave it like that. Like I said, I'm going to do this for 2 days. And this is, what day is today? Tuesday. So sometime on Thursday, I'm going to be stopping. But in the meantime, I'm going to check it, stir it from time to time. As it starts to sink down in the liquid, the bones start to fall apart, and the vegetables are thawed and start to fall in. It's going to need stirred, and I will keep the water level in mind. I will make sure I will add water if I need to. Other than that, I'm just going to go about my business and smell this for 2 days and probably be really hungry for 2 days. So I'll come back and check with you when it's time for the next step. Okay, it's Thursday, about 48 hours after I started the broth. And oh my goodness, it smells so wonderful. I can't even tell you. There's a little bit of brown on some of the skins that were on the top that were touching the bottom of the lid a little bit, but nothing that's going to affect the flavor too much. I think it's just going to make it better. It'll reach a richer aroma. As you can see there, it's pretty much, you know, there's still some big pieces in here, but a lot of the bones are broken down. A lot of the meat is broken down. Everything is broken down a little bit more. Now, remember that I had a lot of different kinds of turkey and chicken in here, so it's treated differently. So I'm not sure of the seasoning. I was a little bit See, here we go. Here's a bone that completely, everything is completely fallen off the bone. So I'm going to, I have it turned off, I'm going to turn it off. And I'm going to get the solids, all of these pieces out of here before I can strain it. So I'm going to get a big bowl. I'm going to show you, I'm not going to film the whole thing, but I want to show you my method. Okay. Try to do this as carefully as I can so I don't get it all over my kitchen. But every bit of the juice that I can get, I want to get every bit of that broth. Now, as you can see, the things that I'm taking out of here are done, double done. I've got my money's worth out of this stuff. Okay, so it's going to just go into, now this is going to go in the trash. I'm not going to put it into the compost because there's a lot of meat and other things in here that are just not appropriate for a compost pile. Some people compost everything. I do not put any meat products or dairy products in my compost. Okay. So I'm not going to do this whole thing, but as you can see, I'm just getting this as much as I possibly can. And then when I'm finished getting as much as I can with a spoon, I will, let me move this. I will then ladle what I have strained with the wooden spoon. I will ladle through a wire colander, and then I will put that in a pot and put it in my refrigerator. So first I'm going to let it cool on the counter a little bit. Then it's going to go in the refrigerator until tomorrow, at least tomorrow. Because I want to see, I think I have a lot of, because of a lot of the, especially like the turkey that was in here, I'm going to have a lot of fat. Now some fat is good and some fat I leave in for flavor. But when I did my turkey, I basted it with like 100,000 pounds of butter. So there's a lot of fat in that turkey that I don't need in my broth. So if there's a significant layer of fat that will come to the top and congeal in my broth from the refrigerator, I will spoon that off, and then my broth will be ready to can. Sometimes when I do chicken, it's just a little tiny bit of fat on the top, not enough to remove. So I just, when getting ready to can, I just heat it up and stir that back into the broth. So it depends on how much is there. So I will let you know. And then I'm going to see how much I get out of this, how much beautiful broth I get, and the color of it after I can it. So I will come back ultimately and show you my results. Okay, the jars just came out of the canner. As you can see, some of them are still bubbling in the front. I'm hoping I don't get siphoning, but we'll see. A little bit can be expected, that's all. Anyway, beautiful. It's beautiful color, nice rich broth. I have, I think I got 40, what did I say I got out of there? 20 pints, made 10 quarts of broth. Okay, and you can see the pretty colors. Oh, it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful. It's gonna sit here till at least tomorrow, till they're completely cooled. I don't touch them, and then I will remove the rings and scrub down the jars for storage. My broth, jars of bone broth are behind me on the counter. You can probably see. They have cooled overnight. I've got really good seals on all of them. They're ready for me to remove the rings, and then I will scrub the jars really well with soapy water, rinse them and let them dry, and then they will be labeled and stored. And I have 20, I got 20 pints or 10 quarts of bone broth. Really delicious, beautiful chicken, turkey, it's poultry bone broth for free, basically for free, because remember, everything I used was something that was going to be discarded, either put in the trash or put in the compost pile. So I got something that if I would have paid, of course, it was significant savings. Broth, just plain chicken broth, a quarter plain chicken broth, it sells, I think, the cheapest I can get it is something like $1.99 for a quart, up to $4.99 and above, $6.99 depending on where you get it. But if I want to have free range or organic or anything like that, bone broth, something called bone broth, of course, is very expensive because it's the fashionable thing. It's a fashionable term right now, but it's really just what we've been making for years for free. I mean, some of us still do, out of the bones of the meats that we, discard from the meats that we are using for other things. So anyway, my savings is something between $20 and up to maybe $50 or so. I have that much broth for my pantry. The idea of alchemy, again, everyday alchemy, taking things that were going to be discarded, old things, and putting them together in such a way as to create something totally new and something more valuable, something that much more valuable now than it was in separate parts to begin with. That's definitely alchemy. Witches, we do this all the time. Look around you and see what kind of alchemy you can perform in your everyday life. Make it magic. Bring the magic into your everyday life. Don't leave magic for mysterious whatever. The magic is real, and it is around us all the time. Just open your eyes. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I am Rebecca, and I wish you blessings.